I was sitting in a yoga class in Berkeley a few years ago. A friend of mine had invited me, and this was a yin yoga class, my very first time. And at the end of this class, for the first time in as long as I could remember, I could actually feel my body. This may seem strange to some of you, however, this was a revelation for me because I had been living in my head and completely disconnected from what was happening in my body. At the end of that class, the yoga instructor shared something which resonated with my heart and soul. She said, "May the intelligence of your mind bow to the wisdom of your heart." And it was such a eureka moment for me that I still remember that moment till this day. Now, I didn't exactly take action immediately. It took a few years for me to really understand how profound that statement is. And it's come as a result of the work I've been doing on stepping into the feminine. You see, I used to be on the corporate fast track, aka rat race. And at that time, I had this limiting belief, and I think it was even subconscious, that in order to get ahead, in order to achieve, in order to fit in, I needed to suppress my phenomenal feminine. I couldn't rely on my powerful intuition. And instead of just being in my beautiful, fabulous feminine flow, I needed to become more stoic. And so I was operating behind this mask of stoicism. And instead of trusting my knowing, I would always have to check and double check everything to satisfy left brain logic. When you go against your brain, when you spend so much time suppressing who you truly are, that magnificent essence of yours, what happens is that you may achieve, indeed. However, a lot of energy and time is wasted on that act of suppression. One. Secondly, that which you achieve comes at such a great cost. You spend so much time double checking, triple checking, second guessing, doubting yourself, that you're not making progress as quickly and as effectively and as in your genius as you could. I really know what that feels like. And so what I really want to share right now is when we start submitting to the ego, submitting to the brain, instead of using it as a very useful tool, then we are minimizing ourselves instead of really optimizing and maximizing. Right? And so it is essential, absolutely essential, that you understand, if you truly want to authentically, if you truly want to be your big, beautiful, bold self, then the mind must be the servant and your heart must be the ruler. And even at a physical point of view, what scientists have discovered is that although the brain is very powerful, the electromagnetic field of the heart and the power of the heart is so much more than that of the brain. So no matter how clever you are, you cannot be cleverer than your heart's wisdom. I found this out the hard way. At a time when I was in the corporate world, I loved my job and I was totally into it, maybe too much. Total workaholic if you ask me, and we can discuss that another time. And I thought my brain was powerful. I thought that was the motor. I thought that was what was getting me ahead. At some point, I disconnected from the company. I disconnected from the work because I was hurt. I was disappointed. And things I used to do in a few minutes, I could barely bring myself to do them. Everything was heavy. And after some introspection, I realized that, ooh, my heart had been the motor all along. I was operating from loving what I was doing, being connected, being dedicated, just being passionate. And when that was no longer on board, yes, my brain could tick off the boxes, but it was a very heavy lift. So when we operate in life with our hearts not on board, what is happening is we're creating a lot of tension, a lot of conflict in our bodies. I was getting unexplained aches and pains. My menstrual cycle became erratic. My hormonal balance, no more balance, completely imbalanced. I was irritable. It was not a sustainable situation. So much so that when I followed my heart, when I really followed my heart's prompting to step out of the golden cage, because this biggest cosmetics company in the world had begun to feel small, and although my head would rationalize, oh, you're getting such an amazing salary, many people would kill for your job, but it's all right, there's nowhere where it's perfect, etc., etc., my heart was simply not on board. And it's only when I spread my wings and I flew away from the nest, because that was the only company I'd ever worked for, and stepped into the unknown, that I felt a power that I'd hardly ever felt before. The power of the yes to your heart and no to anything which does not light you up. And so what I want to say to you, because this is a real big part of really operating from the phenomenal feminine, is that if you want to magnetize as opposed to hustle, if you want to open up and really step into your prepared path that your intellect and your ego may not even know about, if you're ready for that, then it is important that you start listening to the whispering of your heart. Because the heart whispers, it doesn't shout. The heart invites, it does not impose. I got so many whispers, I got so many prompts, and the prompts came along the lines of, I get to do something more meaningful. And it will come and I would rationalize why I got to stay. It will come and I would rationalize. And those whispers became louder and louder, because my body started really reflecting the conflict and tension that I was feeling. And so when we start walking the path of our hearts, when we start being in alignment, mind and heart, life is in flow. We are leveraging the power of life as opposed to resisting and working against it. And then things begin to feel like they drop in your lap. And to be very clear, when I look back now, there is no way that my mind, my brain, no matter how clever I may be, could have planned things the way they showed up for me. How did I get into L'Oreal without ever actually sending a CV? In fact, I was actually as a job interview, which I had no business being, by the way. It was for a management consultancy firm, nothing to do with my heart. It was all brain, where I met this lovely lady who told me about an MBA program in France, which I thought I couldn't even apply to because I didn't speak French. And she said, oh no, it's in English, so I applied. And when I applied, they told me several companies, L'Oreal being one of them, had been, said they wanted to work with me. And so I applied. But why did I apply for an MBA program in France? Because my boyfriend at the time was French, and I really wanted to move to France with him, where he was going for his master's program, following my heart. Many people said, why don't you stay in the United Kingdom? You've only been here 6 years. You should probably stay so you can get your residency and all of those very logical things. And I followed my heart. I followed my heart, and that is how I got into the largest cosmetics company in the world without ever sending an application. And then when it was time to leave, it was time to leave. Things became difficult. Things started feeling tight. I didn't feel expansive. It was no longer joyful. Did it make sense on paper? Maybe no. And it's the best decision, or one of the best I ever made. Shortly after that, guess what? Now I was a little calmer. Now I had more space. I recognized my soulmate and my husband, who I'd met before, by the way. But at that time, I didn't realize it was him. But when we follow the heart, we are more present. We are more open. And so when it comes to love, when it comes to living a life of freedom, when it comes to truly following my purpose and yours, you get to really connect with what your heart is prompting you to do, and then you may choose to use your head to support that vision to coming to fruition. And so what I really want to land here is this. If you keep suppressing your heart's desires, if you keep telling yourself, well, what you desire, what gives you joy, what you truly love doesn't really matter, and you keep on that left brain Excel calculation in terms of how you live your life, at some point there will be frustration, there'll be lack of fulfillment, there'll be lack of even success. Burnout is not a faction, it's not simply a factor of simply doing too much work. Burnout is definitely a factor of not loving what you're doing, your heart not being in alignment with what you're doing. And so when you live a life where your whole being is in alignment, where there is heart-brain coherence, where your brain is supporting the desires of the heart, then you will see how your life becomes bigger, bolder, and more beautiful. And sometimes you may say, but I don't even know what I want, and that is part of the problem. Because when we sit in our heads, we're in anxiety, we don't really know, we're not really calm, we're not in tune, we're not open. And this is why I invite you. This is why I invite you in any way you can to really connect with the heart, to really connect with what your true desire is, and to start walking to the beat of your own heart. If you'd love support with this, reach out to me. This is something I love to speak about. In any case, what part of this resonated for you? Where do you feel in your life you're no longer in alignment? What feels difficult and harder than it used to be or it should be? Love and light.